Okay, all right. Well, hi everybody. Welcome to a webinar with me, Monica Davidson from Creative Plus Business, and Oliver from Rounded. I'll get Oliver to introduce himself properly in just a moment. Before we kick off, of course, I want to acknowledge the lands that we're on. Creative Plus Business has the great privilege of working across a large number of different Indigenous lands around Australia, but I am currently on Gadigal land. I live and work on Gadigal country. And I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the original custodians of this land. I'd also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to any Indigenous First Nations people who are watching this webinar, and also acknowledge the ongoing responsibility of walking on country and ensuring that we do no harm while we're here. So my name's Monica Davidson. I'm sure some of you already know who I am. If not, I'm the director of an organisation called Creative Plus Business. We're a social enterprise, and we are entirely dedicated to educating creative practitioners and arts professionals about business, money, and marketing. Those boring entrepreneurial skills that we all inevitably need at some point in our creative professions and don't usually get too much guidance about. So our organisation helps creative people develop those skills and explore those possibilities in their professional practice. We do that through running workshops, hosting webinars, providing downloadable resources, and providing an advisory and mentoring service, which is part of the reason why this webinar is happening. But I want to get to that in a moment. I'm going to hand over to you now, Oliver, so you can introduce yourself as well.
Thanks, Monica, and thanks for the welcome. I'm on Bunurong land today, and reiterate your welcome to country as well. I am one of the founders and directors of Rounded. Rounded is a software company that's created an invoicing and accounting application that's built specifically for Australian freelancers to help run their business. We have a large contingent of creatives as clients, of very wide, sort of broad brush creatives, of musicians, marketers, digital marketers, artists, voiceover artists, so on and so forth, a lot of journalists, copywriters, that kind of thing. And so, we spend our days working with solo business owners who are, trying to find better ways, more efficient ways to run their business and to gain access to data and insights that can tell them what's going on with their money. So, yeah, and that's why we've had a very mutually beneficial relationship with Creative Plus Business over many years now.
Yeah, in terms of those many years, I was trying to think about how we first connected, and I absolutely couldn't, which I'm going to blame middle age, but I honestly don't know how we entered each other's orbits. So
I remember quite specifically, actually.
Oh, do you? Oh, good. I'm sorry if I've forgotten.
Well, it was actually, I found out about Creative Plus Business through a mutual client who mentioned you, and somebody said, you should get in touch with Monica. And so I did.
Right, and because I'm so friendly.
Well, at first, Monica, I don't know if you remember this, I'm probably putting you on the spot, but I
Oh my
said,
God, no, really?
Rounded, this is what we do. And you said, thanks, but no thanks.
Oh, yes.
We recommend Wave.
Wave, that's
And so
right.
then I sort of left it. And then about 12 months later, you came back and sent me an email and said, do you know what? Actually, we've got so many mutual clients now and so many people talking about Rounded that we should probably learn a bit more about it. And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's part of the first thing I want to talk about and make absolutely clear. Creative Plus Business does not do any paid promotion. It goes against basically every ethical and, kind of ethical fiber in my being. And it's definitely in direct contradiction to our values. So neither of us are getting paid for this. This is not a paid promotion at all. We have connected with Rounded because so many of our advisory clients and workshop participants are looking for easy to use solutions to help them to manage their finances better. And there are, of course, lots of different cloud accounting or online accounting systems that are available. The reason that we recommend Rounded, and part of the reason for this webinar, is because we genuinely do believe that Rounded is the best option for Australian creative freelancers. And I think it's important that we maybe have a conversation about some of the boundaries around that too, because there are certain businesses you don't work with in terms of their structure and size. I'll let you explain that in a moment. But I want to make that absolutely clear. We recommend Rounded because we have recommended Rounded to literally hundreds of creative professionals over the years, and not a single one of them has ever made a complaint or told us that we backed the wrong horse. And the minute that that happens, we will no longer recommend Rounded. So I can guarantee that the reason behind this webinar is not for any kind of benefit for either of us, but to genuinely educate those of you who are interested in considering online or cloud accounting in general, and Rounded specifically, just to get a little bit more of an understanding about how the product works and the benefits of accounting in this way, because there's sometimes two hurdles to overcome. The later hurdle is, which platform will I use? The earlier hurdle is, why should I be using cloud accounting in the first place, which we will obviously talk about as well. But let me just go back to that earlier caveat. So I believe that there are some kinds of businesses that Rounded doesn't necessarily work with. Is that right?
Correct. We're very specifically for freelancers and sole traders. So if you
Yeah.
run a small business that requires payroll, that's probably the main sort of line of demarcation. We're probably not for you. You need something that's bigger. But if you're a sole trader, even if you partner with other freelancers and other contractors to deliver your service, that's absolutely fine. But if you're a sole trader, typically running a business via an ABN, we're built specifically for you. And obviously, we're focused predominantly on the Australian marketplace. And so very well aware of Australian taxes, GST, all of that kind of thing that as an Australian freelancer, you need to know all about.
Yeah, and we will see a demo shortly, but I think it's the simplicity that, you know, because you are working with freelancers and sole traders, you're able to have a simple system for people to use. And if anybody requires anything more complex, then they have to go to one of the other systems that are out there, you know. And certainly we've had a couple of clients who've been very sad to leave you because they've suddenly, you know, now they've got payroll, or they've become companies, or their businesses have expanded to the point where Rounded just, you know, isn't going to be enough to satisfy what they need. They're always a little bit, you know, sad about that. But I think what you've done just is very clever from a business perspective as well, because you've made a very clear boundary around that. And I think that's why so many of our clients like Rounded. It's because they feel safe and protected because it's an environment that's been specifically set up for them and their specific needs.
Yeah, and we know and understand the freelance use case intimately. You know, we have thousands and thousands of customers and have had over the 8 or so years that we've been in business, and so we are experts and specialists in you know, working with freelance businesses. So we talk the same language.
Yeah, brilliant. And can I just ask, why did you decide to focus on that area? Is that your background?
It's not mine, no. My business partner and Rounded's founder, Grant McCall, was a career freelancer. So back in 2013 or 14, you know, he was frustrated with the lack of options that were available for him as he worked, you know, around the world as a videographer, photographer, content creator, servicing predominantly Australian client base. And he found that, you know, at the time, what was available was too complex, too expensive, perhaps not built for the Australian market. And so the first version of Rounded was really an attempt to solve his own problem.
Yeah.
And then it kind of you know, flew on from there.
Well, that's why I started Creative Plus Business. Exactly
Yeah.
the same reason. So yeah, and I think that's another comment that we've had from a lot of our clients, is that Rounded feels like the kind of place where it's okay to be a creative. You know, not that an app is ever actually judging you, but because creatives are so frequently judged for their inability to understand or navigate or manage their finances, very often through no fault of their own. You know, we get judged by our accountants, we get judged by bookkeepers, we get judged by our parents. You know, we get told that what we want to do isn't even really a job, and that we've got no head for business and all that kind of crap. So finding safe places where not only is it okay to be a creative professional, but it's actually part of the process is just really important. And again, that's another reason why we recommend Rounded, because we haven't actually encountered that with any of the other platforms that exist, you know.
Well, it's often, you know, not just with the Creative Plus business, but, you know, a very sort of typical example of a Rounded client is somebody who is very, very talented, They're really good and passionate about what they do, but they haven't had much in the way of business or finance training.
That's right.
And they're driven by their passion to utilize their skills and experience, and not necessarily to spend their time learning how to run the business administration of a business, which in the main, not always, but in the main is actually relatively simple.
Yeah.
And with a little bit of guidance and the right tools, it can be something that doesn't need to cause stress and sleepless nights. It is something that you can, you can kind of get to grips with, and manage, in a perfectly what's the word I'm looking for? Competent way.
Yeah.
And Rounded provides the core of a lot of that sort of competence, providing insights, providing confidence, providing data for our customers to know exactly what's going on with their business.
Well, as I think I've told you, one of my offspring is now running her own creative freelance business. It's the entirety of her income. And she used to cry buckets of tears every time she had to sit down and do her maths homework. And I did fret that perhaps her lack of financial acumen was going to be a big problem. But honestly, she does send me text messages about how much she enjoys using Rounded. And I frequently think, who are you and what have you done with my child? So that's about the most glowing testimonial I can give you. A young creative who used to weep openly at the idea of having to do maths now actually enjoys this process. So, but I think we should talk about that process. So what we're talking about here is cloud accounting, which is really just a way of talking about managing your financial life online. Let's have a chat about why it's important to do that. I have lots of reasons why I think that's important, but I'm sure you do as well. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, cloud accounting, it can be, potentially it can sound like perhaps a more intimidating phrase than it needs to be. Stuff that happens in the cloud just happens on somebody else's computer that's accessed by the internet. And that's how you can access Rounded. You can access it via a browser, on your laptop, or a smartphone app. We have the app in the App Store and the Google Play Store as well. And essentially what that means is that you can access your data, you can access your account securely, wherever you are, as long as you have access to the internet. And typically cloud-based products, and for if you think about software that you use in your personal life now, that might be Spotify or Netflix, they're both cloud products. And like any cloud product, you will pay a subscription for it. So Rounded is a subscription model that you can pay monthly or annually, and to access the app. And that includes obviously your access, depending on the tiers and levels that you want. It includes security, it includes updates, it includes additional features, everything else. So all of that is kind of taken care of. And all you need to do is just make sure that your subscription is kept valid and up to date. And so it's probably a model now that most of us in our personal lives now are very, very familiar with, in terms of how we access the products and services that we've grown to know and love. And so that's the main bit.
I think, and we will get into a demo. I really want to get into the demo so people can actually see this thing, because that's the most important part of this webinar as far as I'm concerned. But I think, my recommendation about record keeping is to do it not because the ATO told you to, or because you're going to have to at some point, but the regular maintenance of our professional finances is really the key here. Of course you can use apps and systems to just tinker with your finances every now and then, but the really important part of this from my point of view is that no app or system can actually replace the time that is needed to dedicate to financial management and just simply paying attention to your financial situation, making regular time, whether that's weekly or monthly, to actually sit down and work out all the things that Rounded can actually do, invoicing, budgets, all the rest of it. We'll have a look at it in a minute. I think that's the most important thing. And in terms of using the technology, we often encounter clients who are very, very happy with their spreadsheet or with their pen and paper. My general rule of thumb is, if it is working for you, then keep doing it. But I do think there's a little bit of fear about taking on a new thing that has to be learned. One of the issues, of course, is it's going to take me such a long time to learn this new thing. What's the point when I'm kind of happy with my old thing? And of course, we're not here to convert people, but one of the things we have talked about is opportunity cost, the cost of choosing one path over another, the cost of choosing an analog path over a digital path. I am a big fan of employing digital processes, mostly because they can be shared, frankly. It's very hard to share, or have some sort of interactive sharing of a spreadsheet or a bit of paper. What are your thoughts about this idea of opportunity cost?
Yeah, look, I completely agree, and I think your starting point is a really important one. In that the software or the tool makes the outcome easier to obtain. But
Yes.
it doesn't do it all. It's not going to do it all for you. And so part of what's important about record keeping and being a business owner, we believe, is taking the time to understand what's happening in your business. Now, you're absolutely right that some people can do that perfectly well using a spreadsheet, but it takes thought, it takes discipline, it takes a mind that's very committed to detail, to be able to do that. And the thing with spreadsheets and what happens, or what we see very often, is that mistakes are easy to make, because
Yeah.
sometimes it can be easy to forget. I didn't update the fact that the client has paid this invoice, and so now I don't know what's happened to that income, or I didn't even send the invoice because I forgot, or whatever it is. And when you begin to use a tool to do that, not only does it happen more quickly, but a lot of the things, the details around business administration can happen automatically. And I'll be able to demonstrate how that works when we have a little look at the demo. But I always want to, you were talking about, the first sort of stage of decision-making process, which is, why should I use a tool when I can do this manually? Why should I pay something every month when I can do this for free using a spreadsheet? And, we would typically look, a typical rounded customer, might be able to, who was running a sort of a business, perhaps not even at the GST registration threshold. So we're not talking about somebody who's earning squillions. Even a new freelancer may be earning, just under the GST threshold, for instance, might still spend, half an hour a week on business admin, which is about, to a couple of hours a month. Now, if you look at that and you go, okay, well, for a couple of hours a month, I don't want to spend, X dollars. I'm trying to keep my business costs down. But the other thing is, the other way of looking at it is the value that subscription provides back to you. So if you can cut your admin in half, and especially as your business grows, you've got more expenses, you're hopefully sending out more invoices, you've got perhaps GST to worry about. All of that begins to compound, and there's very often we see a domino effect of, it's like it's too hard, and then you get to tax time and you haven't done anything, and you've then got to spend hours and days trying to remember what happened and pulling everything together.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of stress, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort. If you find the right tool, something like Rounded or whatever works for you, what you'll find is that the admin time is reduced. And if you tracked your own admin time and then times that by your hourly rate, that's the opportunity cost, right? And so what you find is, okay, so if I typically would spend 4 or 5 hours a month on business admin, that is an opportunity cost of, at $100 an hour. That's $400 or $500 worth of your time, when you might be able to cut that to an hour or two by an investment of $20 a month in the right tool. So it's a very easy calculation to make. And when we talk to people who are considering Rounded, we always ask them to think about value rather than cost. If you're spending $20 a month and you're not getting much back, that's a cost to the business. If you're spending $20 a month and that delivers $200 or $300 worth of value in terms of time that you get back, and removal of stress and your ability to be able to focus on delivering your products and services, to me, that's a good investment. So I
Yeah.
always encourage anybody watching this, just make a very broad estimate of how much time you spent on admin, and then times that by what you would typically charge your hourly rate, and that's the opportunity cost to your business. And if you can reduce that, then there's more money in your back pocket at the end of the day. The thing that makes Rounded stand out is perhaps not necessarily the features that we don't have, sorry, that we do have, but it's also the features that we don't have. So we try
Mm.
to build something that's everything a freelancer needs, with nothing that's sort of superfluous, even to the point where the language that we try and use inside the app is um, you know, as unintimidating as possible. If you sort of start using accounting terms, things like a debtor's ledger,
Yeah.
it's sort of like, oh, it's a
Yeah.
horrible term, but if you say it's a list of overdue invoices, then kind of that makes more sense. The same thing with things like a chart of accounts. A chart of accounts is essentially just an expense report. And so that's what we call it. So we hope to, we try and make Rounded, as unintimidating as possible. So what you're looking at the moment is the dashboard. This is obviously the desktop version, which is accessed via a browser. You pop in a username and a password, and if you're very security conscious, you can activate multi-factor authentication, which is the additional code that you can get via a text message or via a authenticator app as well, so that it can be kept secure. And the dashboard is essentially everything that's happening in your business. Now, obviously, just so that we're not sort of spending too much time, I'm going to focus on the main aspects of Rounded. So
Mhm.
really around it is invoicing, expense tracking, and tax. There's a few other things around that as well. Essentially, it allows you to pretty much run every aspect of your business. And when you log into the dashboard, you can see that everything's there. So the main hero graph here shows you, this is the financial year, but you can look at financial year to date. You've got particular date drop down, so you can see, everything that's happening. You can change to just income, just expense, just profit. So you can get a really intimate look at exactly what's happening with your business, and compare that to other parts of the year. If you prefer a bar chart, you can turn it to a bar chart. It's these little things that I liked. Incoming money will show you the status over here of every single invoice that has not been marked as paid, including stuff that sits in the time tracker. So we have an inbuilt time tracker for people who work on a time and materials basis, or even just for people who are wanting to understand, well, I've quoted 10 hours, but I've actually done it in 8 type of thing. So for internal purposes, we allow you to be able to set income goals. So it's very visual. You can see, exactly where you stand around a monthly or an annual income goal. And again, that can be gross income, or it can just be profit, depending on what you wish. And you can see some very nice visual breakdowns of income via category. So you can see what your most profitable clients are over particular timeframes. The same with expenses, if you want to change them via category or even a particular vendor. So you can see where you're spending your money. And we've got quick links to access invoices down at the bottom. And finally, the financial year. So again, you can change that to either this year or the previous financial year, and it will show you your gross income, what your expenses are, and one minus the other equals taxable income. And then you'll see an estimated income tax amount, which is a rolling cumulative number for the year, which takes into account any quarterly contributions that you may make. If you're on PAYG installments, you can adjust for Medicare levy, and we'll shortly be adding a superannuation contribution
Right.
section as well. That will come out in the next couple of weeks, that will allow you to deduct superannuation contributions that you make to your own superannuation fund, which is important. Now, the only thing that's missing here is the bank feeds, but I'll come back to that in a minute. Now, we'll just carry on. If you want to ask any questions on behalf of the audience, though, Monica, please just jump in and I'll
No,
do my
I
best.
will do. And I love the time tracker because that's something that, a lot of people need, and they sometimes assume that that's not available because Rounded is at the less expensive end of the market, but it's such a valuable tool there.
Actually, there's nobody else that has a native inbuilt time tracker. It's one of the
Really?
things that makes Rounded quite unique in that regard. So I can show that later. So in terms of obviously powering your business, sending out invoices for work completed is key to that. And here's one of the first sort of things that you can see that maybe things might be a bit easier than manually updating everything in a spreadsheet. So you can see that invoices are color coded by status. So you can see the ones that are paid, you can see the ones that are outstanding, and obviously even the ones that are overdue as well, and the ones that are in draft. We have invoice templates that allow you to include a logo, any brand details, address, business
Amazing.
number, that sort of thing. If you need to charge GST, then there's a setting that turns that on and off, including bank details so that you can be paid by EFT. And you can also set up online payments via Stripe or PayPal so that you can offer your clients the option to pay by credit card. One of the things we've done recently is create a feature that allows you to add a surcharge. So as happens often these days, especially if you're paying at point of service, obviously that 1.7% or whatever the credit card transaction people charge, you
Mm-hmm.
can now tick a button and that gets passed on to your client. They pay the fee, so you get paid the full amount. You can also pay it out of your own end, and of course, credit card transaction processing fees are typically tax deductible. I'm not an accountant. Please speak to yours for financial advice that's specific to you. But typically, you can claim transaction processing fees for your business. You can choose whether GST is inclusive, so it's included in the rate that your client sees, or whether it's added on top. And there's a lot of different features and functions that you can choose, fonts and display different things and put little colors and all of that sort of thing.
Right.
The invoice template feature allows you to create different brands. So photographers, for instance, may have a wedding business and a headshot business, which have different branding but it's still all run through the same ABN. So you can do that. We find increasingly now that freelancers may work with international clients. So you might have different payment terms. You might have a different bank account. You may not want to add credit card processing for some clients and for others. So what you can do is create different templates for different types of business that includes different logos, different colors, whatever you want, packages. And so again, rather than, doing things like, duplicating a Word document and I forgot to change the date, or I forgot to change the invoice number, all of that's taken care of
Yeah.
automatically whenever you create an invoice. And essentially what it means is, you can demonstrate to your clients that you take the same care with your own business that you do with theirs. And that your level of professionalism extends to the fact that your invoices are on time. They've always got the right information, and your client, it's giving your clients the impression that, this person's on top of it. And so I need to pay this invoice more quickly. That's what we like.
That is one of the first things I was going to say. A lot of our more emerging practitioners have mentioned that immediately, that once they've started using a platform like Rounded, because the invoices now automatically have all of the information that they're supposed to have legally, and because it looks so professional and well put together, they get respected, they get paid on time, more professional relationships are built, which is kind of sad, but it is true. Like, as a business owner myself, like if I get a scrappy little invoice, in a Word document, I'm going to think, whereas if it comes in looking like these templates do, you kind of just take for granted that this is someone who's taking their business seriously.
It definitely makes a difference. So, this is a main part of the app. It does speed up invoicing. It does mean that, you don't always have to think, did I update that? Has the client paid that? It's all there for you, and it happens automatically. Now, again, we have things like recurring invoices, item templates. So if you've got products or services that you provide often, you can add them in a click. Client statements as well. So if a client that you work with regularly says, well, what have I paid? What invoices have you sent me over the last sort of 3 months? You can easily create a client statement as a PDF for, whatever client, and you can send it, PDF it and send it off, whether that's just outstanding invoices or invoices plus payments that they've made. It's all created there with your branding
Wow,
on. So it's really simple.
that's great.
Quotes as well. I'm not going to go into quotes, but essentially, when you create a quote, you can have that accepted online. And once a quote has been accepted, you can then click a button and it creates an invoice with all the information from the quote. So again, you don't have to double handle information. It all happens automatically. Now,
And when you do a quote in here, can you add on things like terms and conditions so that when someone accepts the quote, they're also accepting the terms and conditions that come with it?
yes, absolutely. So,
Great.
typically what will happen is you can add links to terms and conditions, but if you can see
Hmm.
on the right-hand side here, you can attach
Great.
files. So
Amazing.
typically, and again, you can actually attach the file, the template level as well, so that
Happens all the time.
it's always included. But what we find is that a client will create a quote, and they'll attach a PDF with their terms and conditions, or they can just have a URL link in the email. They can include a URL that says, here are my terms and conditions.
Amazing. That's fantastic. And another feature that a lot of people have commented on is the invoice reminder feature, so that a reminder can be sent out to clients who haven't yet paid if it's getting close to the due date. I know, again, I'm sorry to make it about my family, but that was a feature that saved my daughter from so much anxiety and stress, because rather than her having to go out and contact all the people that owed her money, the app just did it for her.
Absolutely. So you can see here, here's an invoice that's been sent. It's still outstanding. It's not yet overdue. And there's a simple toggle that you can turn on. And so essentially, the app will, if this invoice is not marked as paid by the due date, within 24 hours of the invoice going overdue, there is a reminder that is automatically sent. And of course, you can configure the content of that reminder, but that will happen automatically. So you don't have to remember to chase up overdue invoices. You can send them manually as well. The other nice little feature, though, and I'm just going to a paid invoice. Maybe see if there's one with a little bit more information, is the timeline on the right-hand side.
Yeah, great.
So you can see when it was sent, whether it was sent or actually manually marked as sent, when the invoice was opened, and when it was paid. And so
That's brilliant.
if you're kind of trying to remember, what did I do? When did I send that? And what we find is that this is especially useful for the more challenging clients. I probably don't want to go into too much details, but
No.
we do hear stories of clients that like to play little games around, oh, I didn't get
I
it.
didn't get it. I
This,
know we
you
have
know,
some of those clients too.
this and
Yes.
that. And so, this allows you to kind of know maybe when somebody's trying to play a few games with you, kind of
Oh
puts you,
yeah,
again,
yeah.
puts you right in control. And so, you don't feel that, perhaps the angst, or, you have the access easily to the information to give you the confidence to go to your client and kind of manage them quite firmly if needs be.
I should have mentioned this earlier, just again for transparency's sake, but Creative Plus Business unfortunately doesn't use Rounded because we are one of the larger organizations that have payroll and all that kind of stuff. But yes, we use a different system, but it is nice when a client says, oh no, but I haven't even seen it, to be able to say, oh, that's interesting because our accounting system says you opened it on the
And I'll
24th
let
of
you into a little
February.
secret, Monica, as well. Rounded doesn't use Rounded either, for the same reason.
Well, there you go. I suppose we're
Yeah.
being super transparent now, but yeah, that's good to know. Good to know.
So another
Yeah,
massive part of the app is expenses, of course.
yep.
Now, a really critical part of making sure that you've got as much money in your pocket as you can, and claiming business expenses is a huge, not only an administrative task, but it's also a profitability task as well, because every invoice that goes missing, every expense that goes missing is money that, you're paying tax on when you don't have to. And so there is an expenses section, but a huge part of managing expenses is the bank feeds. Now, bank
Yep.
feed is a way that you can connect your bank account to Rounded, and that allows you to see your bank statement inside the app and to use the list of transactions that's shown to create income and expense records. And so I'm just going to jump into another account here. This is a staging account, and essentially you connect your bank account by pretty much the same way as you would log into your internet banking, and you can choose which accounts you might want to bring into Rounded. So it might be that, when you log into your internet banking, you might see 3 or 4 different accounts for different things, maybe a mortgage account or whatever, and you don't want all of them, to be associated with your business. And I'm sure you talk about this, but it's always the best place to say, Monica, that, setting up your own business 101, the one thing, of course, outside of getting accounting software that will make your business admin so much easier, is to get a business dedicated bank account so
Yeah,
that you don't have to
absolutely.
sift through personal transactions.
And you can even get one, quite a lot of our clients will just get one that's kind of set up as a side account to their main personal account. So it doesn't even have to be
Correct.
a whole separate account. It could just be, an additional account to your main personal account, which is okay for sole traders. That's legal and the tax office doesn't mind. And this bank feed option is available for people who pay slightly more per month. That's right, isn't it?
So we have 2 plans, the starter and the pro. Bank feeds are only available on the pro plan. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm. But it's not much more expensive. It's a reasonable
it's
amount.
about $5 a month more
Yeah.
expensive.
And
Um,
for the opportunity costs of saving yourself having to dip back and forth between a bank account and, your cloud accounting, I always recommend that people choose to have a bank feed regardless of what platform they're using, because it just makes life so much easier once you've got that separate account set up.
And if you were, not sure about bank feeds, I guess the other thing is that when you sign up for a free trial, there's no credit card required, and the trial is completely unrestricted. So bank feeds is
Mm.
one of those things that you can try out, make sure that it works for you. If you find that it doesn't, then there's no reason for you to continue with it. You don't have to, but you do get the opportunity to try it during the trial. Now, one of the most amazing things about bank feeds is about a year ago, we built our own machine learning AI algorithm to help with expense tracking. And I'm going to show you
Oh,
how
that's
that
fancy.
works. So as soon as you connect your bank, what you'll see is that you will get suggestions, because the app will analyze your expenses, analyze your bank feeds, and make suggestions as to how you can quickly approve expenses with a click. And the more that you do it, the more it learns and the better it gets. So just to give you an example, I've just brought up some BP transactions. So if you're somebody that maybe has to drive and you have to buy petrol, which is fairly common, then you may be, okay, well, here's something that I did a trip the other day. I'm going to add it as an expense. So I'm saying that maybe, okay, well, it's only 50% for business use. I'm going to add a new expense category of fuel. I'm going to say that it's BP. I'm not going to assign it to a client because I'm not on charging it. If I want to, I can attach the petrol receipt here, which I could snap with my phone. I don't want to change the description, and I'm going to say done.
Amazing.
All right,
I
now.
just want to quickly mention, if you don't mind, the reason why you were selecting a percentage there, that's a process called apportioning, which is something that sole traders can do in terms of their tax deductions. You're actually allowed to decide how much of an expense was for business use and how much of it was for personal use. So if you were getting petrol and in that particular case that you had, about half of the time that you've been driving the car was for business and the other half was for your personal stuff, you're allowed to assign a percentage to it that you think is reasonable.
Yeah, and your accountant will be able to, your
Help
accountant
with
will be
that.
able to help you with that. But
Mm-hmm.
what you may have noticed is that now we've done that, next to a similar transaction, you can now see a little star. And when I hover over the star, the algorithm has said, well, last time, this is how you categorized it. Here's the amount, there's the category, there's the vendor, there's the business use, GST is included. Do you want to add it as an expense? And so rather than fill in all of those things, I can just click yes, and you can see that it's categorized this one in exactly the same way. And
Amazing.
again, if you want another example, you might come to Woolworths, and again, often people who, we have a cake baking business or something that you may need. And again, you have some items with GST, some without, you might buy some stuff for your business when you're doing your weekly shop. So again, you can do the same.
Great.
And the same. And now you can see all the way down the list.
Yeah, cool.
You
That's
know,
very cool.
it's making suggestions, and essentially you can come up to expense suggestions and filter by all of these, and you can go, yep, 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 yep. You know, if you need to edit, if they've not got something quite right, you can edit, and then you can just go, right, I'm approving 100 expenses, and they get reconciled automatically using the AI, and they all get added immediately to your dashboard and immediately to your expenses. And I've just done 100 expenses in a single click. Now, obviously, you know, you may not need to do that many all the time, but
Mm,
it just shows you how much time you can save by leveraging the tool, leveraging technology and AI in the way, in
that's
this way.
amazing. That's very
And
cool.
again, just going back to the dashboard, you can see here that when bank feeds are added, the bank feed totals and your accounts are also added to the dashboard so that you can see kind of the position that you're in, including your bank balances and everything else.
That's a great tool as well, because one of the things we recommend to our clients is to have a couple of different savings accounts set up. You know, if you're going to have multiple accounts off your main account, most banks will let you do that at little or no cost. You can have a tax savings account, which a lot of sole traders need because they need to actually pay their own taxes as they go or at the end of the year. You might have a savings account for a new piece of equipment or something that you want to buy, or maybe for some travel. So it's good to sort of to have the bank feed there and also to have your financial goals there. Gives you an opportunity to see how you're going.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, one of the other great features is the time tracker. I'll quickly show that essentially, and this works on mobile too. Bank feeds works on mobile too as well. That essentially you can set up projects for particular clients, and then you can either track time as billable, which means you want to put it on an invoice, or non-billable. You can add time manually as well. I'm just doing this quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Select a project, and you can see there that
Great.
it's all captured. And then you can use the timer to invoice the project.
Amazing.
So I'll create an invoice, and then you'll see that all of the unbilled items for that project have been added automatically to an invoice. Nothing's been lost, nothing's been forgotten about, and you can then send that off to your client.
And that's great for those persnickety clients that want you to account for every moment that you've spent on their project.
Yeah.
You've got that time tracker there and you can actually do it.
And there's also a timesheet report as well. So if you ever need to send them a more detailed breakdown of everything that you're doing, you know, we might have, you know, clients often say, oh, my client doesn't need all this detail on the invoice. I just want to send them one line item with the end amount, which you can do. And then you can send them a timesheet report, which is like an attachment as a PDF. So if they want to deep dive into everything that you've been doing and have a breakdown of what hours you've spent doing what, they can. But their accounts department just wants the total, and you know, so that they can pay the invoice. But again, this is something that makes Rounded quite unique. You know, of course, there are time trackers out there, but none of them are actually directly integrated to within an invoicing and accounting app. So
It's so important.
it's a good feature. Now, finally, there are just a few reports, and I'll wrap this up as quickly as I can, Monica, noting the time. So if you are somebody who is GST registered, all you need to do is log income and expenses with GST.
Yep.
And if your income and expenses are logged correctly, and again, you may need an accountant or bookkeeper to make sure that everything's as it should be and the right percentages and all of that sort of stuff, Rounded will automatically track all of the GST on your income and expenses and create a quarterly activity statement. You know, for those of you that are registered, you'll be well aware of BAS time. And you can come to the activity statements and click it open. And when you go to MyGov, you need three figures: the G1, which is total sales, 1A, which is GST on sales, and 1B, which is GST on purchases. So assuming all your data has been entered correctly, Rounded will do all the grunt work.
Amazing.
And you can log into MyGov and do your BAS in about 30 seconds flat.
Wow, that is so good. And I know that
So
that's not going to be where everybody who's watching this is at, but that 75,000 threshold, that turnover threshold for registering for GST can sometimes sneak up on people. It seems like a lot of money at the beginning of your career, but it doesn't take long once you hang in there for a while to sort of get up to that number. And I've even spoken to clients who've deliberately kept their turnover under 75,000 a year just so they don't have to deal with the nightmare of a business activity statement. I mean, it doesn't look like that much of a nightmare, frankly. I know I'm used to it, but I'm just saying it looks pretty easy from here.
again, it doesn't need to be a nightmare, and I know that GST can be intimidating. There's a couple of other ways of looking at it as well. In that, you can voluntarily register for GST as well, even if you
Yes.
are under the threshold. And again, I'm not giving any advice to do that. Please talk to your accountant, all the rest of it. But
Hmm.
from an external point of view, if you are charging GST, your client sees a business of a certain size. And there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors involved, regardless, even if you're not quite there. There is credibility associated with collecting GST, on your invoices and being able to claim GST on expenses. And again, if you are trying to, get into that mindset of I am a very credible business owner. I'm running a business here. It's a successful business, and I am acting and I am feeling successful. Uh,
Mm.
I know that it can sound weird to say this, but
No, it's
frankly,
absolutely true.
GST is a huge part of that, and it says something to your client about where you're at as an individual if you
And it
charge.
says something about you as well in terms of where you're hoping to get to. So I
Yeah.
think that's really important. And I don't know if you were going to mention this, but those other reports, I just want to mention that in terms of doing things analog or doing things manually, that was one of the big shocks for a lot of people when COVID happened and there were grants and, payments available for people who could produce those sorts of records and that sort of paperwork. Quite a lot of our clients were immediately discounted from being able to access some of that money because they couldn't easily produce those sorts of reports. Some freelancers will be watching this and thinking, I'm never going to need a profit and loss statement. That doesn't need to be something I use. And that might be true, but it doesn't take long before funding bodies or, government organizations or grant givers or whomever it is will want to see that kind of thing. So I think that's a worthwhile mention too.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, and all of these reports, and again, this is where perhaps there's another advantage over a spreadsheet. All of these reports are created automatically outside of choosing a time frame. You don't need to do anything outside of your day-to-day business admin, and you
Yep.
can download this stuff as a PDF or a CSV if you wish, as a spreadsheet. But it gives you everything that you need to know, whether that's an income report or an expense report. And
Hmm.
of course, profit and loss might be one of those things that you think, oh, that's a bit intimidating, or I don't need a profit and loss. But essentially, the profit and loss is is what shows you where your taxable income is.
Yeah, that's right.
And so if you want to know where your business is at and how your tax is calculated, what your accountant essentially will be doing is creating a profit and loss based on your financial information. So this can be done automatically.
Mm.
Right. And I think that it's important to know that if you really want to know where your business is at, the profit and loss is it.
Mm. Oh, 100%. On accountants for just 1 second, because I know we don't have much time left. One of the big pushbacks that a lot of our clients have mentioned is that when they have decided that they want to implement Rounded, they've had some pushback from their accountants because those accountants don't know how to use Rounded or they're unaware of Rounded. So this is a two-part question. One, how does this work with accountants? Can accountants access Rounded? Can they see these figures? Do you have that capacity like other platforms do? And secondly, any advice to people who have an accountant who's maybe pushing back on the idea of using Rounded?
Yeah. So the first question is, can accountants see it? Yes. Now we have in settings an accountant access section, and all you have to do is to pop your accountant's email address in and click invite,
Right.
and they will get an email with their own secure login, allowing them to access your data. And there's varying levels of permissions that you can control around what they can see and what they can do. Invitations can be revoked and permissions can be changed at any time. So you are completely in control. And I think, we're also now in a situation where everybody's very concerned with online safety. We're all aware of data breaches that are happening with big companies and those sorts of things.
Mm,
When you are extracting information to a spreadsheet and emailing it to your accountant, that's the kind of thing that makes your data easier to get hold of. And
yeah.
once you've put it in a document like a PDF, and it's somewhere on your accountant's laptop or somewhere in their system, you're no longer in control of it. So one of the great things about Rounded is the secure access for your accountant. At the end of the day, and this is the final sort of thing about reports, is your accountant is going to charge you for doing your tax return or your BAS. But if you're giving them sort of spreadsheets and bits of information from here, there, and everywhere, and shoeboxes of receipts and all that kind of stuff, it's going to
Mm,
take them longer, and they charge you by the hour. Right.
yeah.
So if you give them access to, your prepared and managed data that's all beautifully structured, everything's in the same place, they can jump in and just check that everything's correct. They should really be able to do what they need to do, very efficiently and very quickly.
That's probably one of the best value adds that, I've heard of from our clients that have used this, is that because the system is easy to use and because it can be done slowly with a free trial at their own pace, they can kind of get over their own shame and their own confusion and their own concerns about how crap they are quietly, privately, and build up that sort of financial confidence so that they can be brave enough to have those kinds of difficult conversations with problematic customers or bossy accountants or whomever it might be.
Yeah.
It's a kind of hard thing to put on your website and go Rounded makes people more confident, but I have seen it, and I think that that's true.
And that's that's really where we focus, is trying to provide our clients with the confidence to that helps them run a better business and helps them build a better business. And confidence is a huge part of it. And we've all had the conversations around imposter syndrome and that kind of thing. And all these little things feed into that. And so I guess just to finish off, I just wanted to say a couple of things, that if you're watching this and thinking, all right, am I going to try? Well, Rounded is free to try, genuinely free. There's no need for a credit card, so it's absolutely a free swing. And as I said before, the trial is unrestricted. We also have live chat support that is incredibly responsive. You can normally expect a response during business hours within about 30 seconds. And if you have questions about how the app works, or you have any questions about Rounded as a company or as a tool, we're there to help and support. And so I just encourage you to give it a go. You've got nothing to lose. And hopefully we can we'll be there to help you out.